What's up, guys? It's the newest edition of the DC Defenders show on the United Football Media. I'm joined by my main man, Alex. Hey, we got a victory show, so it's nice to add one of these. I know it's a little too late for us, but Alex, how are you?
I'm doing great. A little Victory Wednesday. Hit the music.
So, Alex dancing to that song every single week gets me. Big win against Memphis because they took care of business. It could have been a team that kind of gave up after the playoffs were taken away because they were supposed to be in the playoffs. Memphis seems like a team that's given up a long time ago and a rotating door at quarterback. And this was an opportunity for the Defenders to be like, hey, we're going to be all right, at least going towards the future, and we're going to keep fighting even though we can't get into the playoffs. Your thoughts on the game this weekend?
Yeah, that sums it up. I mean, that's perfect. They took care of business. And, we talked about it. These guys have a lot of pride. Season hasn't worked out like they wanted it to work out. But, you definitely want to go out and take care of business. Some of these guys are auditioning, getting film. I think offensively was probably the best offensive performance of the year. Obviously, in terms of the run game, it was. I think we rushed for 145 yards, and the pass game was dynamic. JT had completed a high percentage of his throws, lots of yards. It was an offensive explosion for us. And then defensively, we did what we needed to do. So you like to see teams take care of business. I still think this football team, they're a couple of plays from, still being in the thick of it. They aren't. But, they certainly took care of business, and I was glad to see that, especially on the road, too.
Yeah, it was good to see that the culture in the organization was still fighting, and it wasn't like, I'm going to be honest with you, watching Memphis, it looked like they've given up. I'm not saying every player has, but it looks like they're not together as much as DC. And yes, I know DC has had a better season in the eyes of wins and losses. Memphis hasn't really had a good half of football since the first half of week one, and that was in March. And now we're into June. Offensive line play. I know you touched on the running game and all that. It seemed like even though we are on tackle number 13, 13 offensive tackles this year, it seemed like the offensive line started to click a little bit. And I don't know if is that a Memphis thing? And we played Memphis and they've kind of given up, or was it, hey, we might have something here with a couple different guys. The core is still there, right? I'm talking about the interior three guys, and I know Durant was playing some tackle, and he was guard most of the year. What do you think about the offensive line after this past week?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of it was Memphis, and the fact we were able to get after them pretty good. But we did create some seams, and I think that was one piece of it. I think the other thing too, and I give the coaching staff credit for this, is we stuck with the run. We were able to continue to run the ball. We didn't run and get stuffed and then kind of go away from it and start slinging it around. I think JT's numbers definitely, I think it was 20 of 24 for 270 some odd yards. When that run game's working, we've talked about it before. You even talked about it before the show. Run, pass, option, run comes first. We were able to do that this past week, and JT looked much more effective. But offensive line, I thought they executed better. So I think the reality is in the middle. Some of it's Memphis, some of it is, we executed, and then some of it is we stuck to the run game and gave it a chance to work.
Definitely. What about the receivers? JT had a good game. Was there a receiver that kind of stood out to you that was like, oh, okay?
Well, Kute a little bit from the standpoint of, he had 5 receptions, 70 yards, or 69 yards, and then they used him again in the run game with the reverse. Chris Rowland, that first touchdown, boy, that guy can fly. He caught that ball on 4th and 2 on our first score, and he caught it in that little window between the linebacker and where the corner was. And when he turned upfield, they both had angles on him, and he just separated. That guy can absolutely fly. So it was good to see Kute, get numerous catches involved in the run game, the pass game, and then Chris Rowland's become a weapon on special teams. But, that touchdown catch he had was just so impressive when you look at how he just ran away from everybody. Those two.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you just touched on my team MVP of the entire season, Chris Rowland. I think he has been extremely important because nothing's been consistent unless only the kickoff return has been consistent all year. If you think about the Arlington game, the big kickoff got us in position. Like, he is now developed into the passing game, and me and you talked about it before the season. So you should be watching the show every week because we kind of have a vibe with this team. Chris Rowland was the guy, and I think he's the MVP of this team. And we'll hand out our awards next week. That's a little cliffhanger for all you guys out there to come back next week, even though the season will be over for our defenders.
That return game you can't minimize either, because think about how it was with our Maulers last year. You remember they had Blewett, who was kicking it from 63 and 67. I mean, a guy had a rocket of a leg getting returns where we were taking the ball back to midfield consistently. The 40 midfield, the plus 45. You only had to move the ball 12, 15 yards. You were at a scoring chance. That return game is incredibly important. And I think, Chris did Roland did a wonderful job this past week. So I agree with you.
I think he's done a wonderful job all season. After week one, he became because he was inactive week one. He became the kick returner, and it kind of changed the offense. Like you said, they only had to figure out 15 yards, 20 yards because McCrane it does have a boot, really.
Right.
But the thing about it is the offense couldn't figure out those 15, 20 yards.
They could get 15 yards.
And that was the trouble the entire year.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to point out is this team is 2-1 with Briley Moore in the active. They are 2-1 this year. He comes back, and did he have a great game? No, he didn't have a great game, but there's a little vibe to the team. And I talked to Briley after the game, and I was like, man, what do you say in the locker room? And he didn't really give me anything, but it just seems like they got a little swag to them with Briley Moore and the double tight end. You saw Caden Smith get involved. You saw Alex Ellis kind of get involved. You know what I mean? Like Briley Moore, who, by the way, there's only one person in the entire league that has over 92% of catching their targets. And he plays for the DC Defenders. And that doesn't matter if you only got one pass, 5 passes, it doesn't make a difference. There's only one more, and that's Briley Moore. He's got 100% of his targets, which I thought was unbelievable when I figured
that is unbelievable
all season. Especially when we talk about Tiamu, who has been hovering around 50%, and he's 100%. Yes, I know his routes are shorter. I get all that, but a lot of times that's a tougher catch than outrunning the guy over the top.
Absolutely. No, that's a great point. You pointed that out too about Briley Moore when he got hurt. We kind of sputtered a little bit on offense. You're like, hey, is he the missing cog? And I kind of was like, yeah, it took us out of our 2 tight ends. I don't necessarily know if it's Briley Moore, but you got a point. They bring him back, and there are these intangibles when you have certain guys on the field and certain guys in the lineup that just make you feel more confident. And he was in there a lot with Caden Smith and the 2 tight end. It was the combination of those two, and I was impressed with both. But shout out to Briley. We missed you.
I think it was the first game also that, and maybe that's their commitment to the run, that they actually carried 3 tight ends, because they've had Bresnahan since Briley Moore has been out on the roster, and they've continued to go with just 2 tight ends. The fact that they went 3 tight ends, I think we should have seen it on the depth chart that, hey, guess what? We're going to punch you in the face, Memphis. We're going to keep punching you in the face, and then we'll pass it, and you can't stop us because Tiamu will be in a group.
Yeah.
Talking about Tiamu.
Stop.
He plays great. He plays great. But man, 2 turnovers in the end zone. That's my problem. Because you were running the ball. If he takes care of the ball, you get a field goal, or I don't remember the downs exactly on both interceptions, but you get a field goal, you get points, and I know the game wasn't close. But those are the details. Those are the details for him personally and for this team that they've been missing all year, that take care of the ball when they need to. Now he's second in the league in passing yards. I don't know if you know that. He's in front of Adrian Martinez, in front of all these MVP candidates. He's only behind Luis Perez. But it's a counting stat. I get that. When you get the most opportunity, you are the most successful. Yeah, I get that. So he's had if he could just take care of the ball, I think this team would be a little bit better. Your thoughts on JT going into last week? You've been his toughest critic on the show. Out of the 2 of us, I've had the I love JT tattoo, while you have not. so you give me an honest assessment of JT as a quarterback through 9 weeks.
I think what you see from him is what he is. And I mean, he's the same guy I think he was at Tampa a couple of years ago. He had a great year, last year. No question about it. But he had good weapons last year that helped him too. JT, like you've said, can be effective throwing the underneath stuff, the high percentage balls. He's much better when we get the RPOs working. His mechanics at times can go funny, and I think that's why you see him, sail a ball. We're going in. That second interception was the one that really stood out to me. That's just a bad throw. He throws it to the safety, and we give up an opportunity to score there. But I think he's what you see is what he is what I think, and I think you can play call to that, you can scheme to that, and I thought this week we were successful. 20 of 24. That's a really high percentage. Having the run game going really complemented what he can do. He's a leader. I know from the conversations you've had with those close to the team, they'll say that he's the undisputed champion in the locker room. He's our guy. I think this team is going to see a lot of turnover. And I know in Rowdy Addy, this Sunday, I'll be there in person and I'll be cheering for the guy because he's given us some really big moments last year and some fun moments this year. And I wish him nothing but the best, even though I know I've been critical, but I try to be honest and just, he is what he is.
I get it. If you're kind of hinting that he might be moving on, I think if this regime is still there, he will be the starter in 2025. That's my opinion, that he will be the guy. Even though what we found out this week is all these contracts end after this year. So we are down for a crazy pandemonium of letter intents, guys that are free agents, so on and so forth. And who knows? But I think the system works with him. If they have an offensive line that's protecting them, they commit to the running game. Yeah. The games that they have been successful are probably their best running games.
No, there's probably. There's 100%. Yeah. You're right. That's when we're able to run the ball. And I think, that's the one, too, when you look at it. In fairness to JT, I will say this, too. You lost 2 receivers to the NFL, and you lost the top rusher. And I know we've said it over and over. This isn't crime, but this is reality. We didn't replace those guys with guys that were better. You could argue that Abram Smith, that was like that loss right before the season started. I mean, they had Cam Harrison brought him in, and I think Darius did a nice job at times, but neither one of them is Abram Smith. And now you've lost that threat out of the backfield. And, he was our home run back last year. So I think at the end of it, you can say JT didn't have the year that he had the year before. That's obvious. He also was playing with the deck stacked against him a bit just because you're kind of foolish to think we could lose that much talent and not miss a beat, Yeah. Oh, and one other thing on the passing yards, too. I agree with you on the passing yards. And trust me, I love quarterbacks throwing touchdowns, throwing for lots of yards, and run up the stats. I'm an old school run and shoot guy. I love to blow up the scoreboard. But there's also effective passing yards, and that's what I'd say too. JT may be second in passing yards, which he is. Tip my cap to him. But, where are you getting those yards? Are you getting those yards to 30, and then you stumble and miss a field goal, or you settle for a field goal because you're inaccurate in the red zone? To me, the real mark of a quarterback, I think, is total offensive production. How many points are you putting up? How many wins are you putting up? That's probably not fair, but I mean, that's kind of the bar that I use,
it goes back to one of our early episodes with the security blanket. When you don't have your security blanket of Abram Smith and Briley Moore, right? And when you don't have guys like that, you start to struggle, especially in those end zones and all that. So I think he developed with Chris Rowland a lot, but tell me who replaced Lucky. Tell me who replaced Blair. Harmon had a good season before he got hurt, but there wasn't a second guy, so you can kind of key on him. Now Rollins starting to get into a groove and all that, and the season's over, unfortunately. So we got to move on. But and commitment to the running game, I think JT needs that. You just talked about it a couple minutes ago. If Fred Tice calls a game where we're running the ball 10 times with our running back, we're not going to win with Jordan Town. Like, I love the guy, but we're not going to win. He's got to mix in. You've got to be able to have that threat where you got to worry about him running, you got to worry about another guy running, and then you got to worry about the quick slant that's coming over the top. And that guy has to make a read, and then JT makes the proper read most of the time. If the running game's going. If
That's
the
right.
running game's going well, he can make that read.
Absolutely. And if the running
You taught
game
me
isn't,
football. You taught me football.
well,
I'm not a pony fan. Like, I'm willing to learn and willing to adapt. I'm not going to cry about a command center. I'm not going to sit here and cry and be like, like I'll be man enough to admit it. Who cares if Poland has more fans? I don't care. Like, I'm not crying. Whatever. Anyways,
Yeah.
we're going to switch to the other side of the ball.
Let's do
before
it.
I start getting on. Who is your defensive MVP of this season? I would say my offensive MVP with Chris Rowland.
Of the season.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to steal your thunder because I know you love those cornerbacks, and I love those cornerbacks too. If I had to say my defensive MVP for the season without looking at the stats, but the eye test, I'm probably going to go with my boy Malik Fisher. I'd say Malik was good from the beginning of the season. He's been consistent at getting pressure and being disruptive. I really like Roberson too. But I said if I had to pick one, it'd be Malik.
Malik Fisher.
Yeah.
That's without a doubt. I didn't ask you about your offensive.
Oh, offensive?
Yeah, your offensive. I didn't ask you when I was telling you about Chris Rowland. I'm more interested in your offense, obviously, because you're a Jude Jones guy and you like to score up. Yeah, like you like 93 to 68 games.
Wow. I'd have to put some thought into the offensive guys because I don't know if we really had one. If you look at it, we didn't really have standout guys week over week. I mean, maybe you could make an argument for Harmon before he went out. Possibly. I mean, he was the top target from a receiving standpoint. That's a tough one. Hell, when you first said Chris Rowland, I was like, that's probably not a reasonable pick for offensive MVP. But if you look at it, hell, he's as good as any of them. Yeah. Harmon. I'll go with Harmon just to be different.
That's fine with me. So we're talking about the defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go on a little rant here. They have the best two corners right now in the league playing right now. They have the best two corners. Baker and Conley are playing unbelievable. And then you add Mike Joe, who is playing well for most of the season. And then you add guys like Isaiah Anderson and guys that can kind of come over the top and they can be your dime and your fifth defense, all that. And then the safeties are going to smash your teeth right in the back of your throat.
What do you think about Monte Nicholson?
Oh, he's a personal foul penalty waiting to happen almost every single hit in this modern day football. He's just old school, like Rodney Harrison kind of thing. Like he's just coming over the top and just wants to take your head off, which is kind of crazy. But DeAndre Baker has quietly, I believe, put together one of the best corner seasons. He won't get the all UFL because he doesn't have a ton of interceptions or a ton of tackles, or he doesn't play on the Stallions and their pony fans are crying publicly. Like there won't be any recognition for him. Like me and you have followed this team religiously since the beginning of the season, right? Since the UFL came out. Yeah. We just heard DeAndre Baker talk for the first time last week on that interview. Yeah. And he just sounded like a dog. And that's no pun intended with him being a Georgia Bulldog, but like he just sounded like, hey, I'm here to just hit and be aggressive. And I was like, is that Greg Williams playing cornerback? Like, is that Greg Williams transformed? Because that's exactly what it is. Conley's kind of the same thing. Conley's a little bit more of finesse, while DeAndre will put the teeth in the back of your throat. But I got to say, if I'm going to take a defensive player, Malik Fisher is probably number one because I think out of all the weeks, if all the weeks are put together, DeAndre Baker's had games where he was hurt, he wasn't active. Conley had inactive weeks. Malik Fisher has been very consistent, especially because, hey, we were going into the season saying Davin Bellamy and Trent Harris are going to be the best 1-2 edge rush, and I don't know where I'm still looking for him. I'm going to put my detective hat on. And I'm still going to look for him, all right? Like, I'm going to look for him, right? I'm on the missing case of Davin Bellamy right now. But I love DB. But DB will tell you he hasn't had a great season. He's been more of a space eater more than a pass rusher. But I will say on two-point conversions, he has had sacks, so he doesn't show up on that. You know what I mean? Like if you're in a 2-point, that doesn't count as a stat for you, which is crazy to me. But anyways. Talk about the defense. What do you think about them and how they're able to the defensive line? Let's start defensive line.
This particular week,
Vito Victor had a decent game.
Yeah, he went over
is that
100.
because of the defensive line? Is that because of the defensive line, or is it because we have linebackers that can't tackle?
A little of both, I think. I mean, I think we're real good on the edge. But again, we gave up 140. I think it was 140 on the ground again.
Yeah,
so I mean, when that happens week after week, then that's what you are. And we even talked about it very early in the season, that Arlington game. I hate to pat myself on the back too much, but I remember watching that game, and I can show you the notepad when I was taking the notes of how many times we put 7 and 8 guys up there and still couldn't stop the run. And then I start thinking, man alive, are we soft? And, it really speaks, I think, to the great job Greg Williams did with the defense. If you think about, how we stayed in games and how this defense was effective stopping people at time when it counted. And to do that with out having that stud middle, like you remember last year, I hate to go back to it, but with the Maulers and how tough they were in the middle with, Ruben and Tez and Boogie and Olive and those guys in the middle. We were damn good in the middle. And this team, you just didn't get that feeling at all. You just felt like, if I had to play DC, I'd come out. I might even go old school and throw a fullback in there, man. And, line up in an offset eye, and here we come until you can stop it. So anyway, I don't know if that answered the question, but I think we are where we are. Memphis ran their yards because we're not going to stop anybody. We're not going to shut down anybody's run game, period.
Yeah.
Linebacker. Momo Sinago could be. Sorry, I'll stop. Momo Sinago impressed me. And he's a guy, I think, if he comes back, he can be very, very solid. He showed to be, I think, potentially have the most upside for any of those linebackers. The rest of them, I think we could probably open it up next year. That entire interior, I think next year, a lot of jobs up for grabs.
I remember one of the early episodes we talked about cuts and all this, and we were expecting to go to a different way, including the linebackers and the DT, and that was the biggest surprise out of all of them. And that turned out to be the weakness. So maybe Greg should and Vaughn should give us a call, and we'll work. I'll do pro bono. I don't care, just to help out the team. But one thing I do want to point out about this season is we are second in the league in third down percentage on defense. Did you know that?
No,
because there were a lot of drives that it just seemed like, man, we can't get off the field, and especially in the second half, thinking about the St. Louis game where you just could not get off the field. But for the most part this season, San Antonio is the only team that's better on third down. So I find that crazy because San Antonio has pass rushers, and I without checking the stats, I'm pretty sure they're top 4 in sacks. I think we're bottom 2. I think we're bottom 2, bottom 3. Like we're one of, and we don't create turnovers, and all the other defensive stats do not correlate to being successful on third down. And that has blown my mind that Greg, when he calls out Joker, because it seems like every time they got a big third down and you hear him say, Joker, 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 they figure it out. And I got to give a tip of the hat to Greg, because remember at the beginning of the season, we were like, man, what is Greg sending 11 on a fourth and 7? We're sending 11 to stop these guys against San Antonio. I remember a little dish out to, I think, McFarland or Kirkland, and Kirkland takes to the house, and no one's covering them because there aren't enough guys on the field to cover them because everyone's rushing the quarterback. So I got.
Well, he did that against Houston, the game I was at, when they brought everybody at the end, last play of the game. And if that ball's not thrown behind the tight end, I mean, and from where I was in the seats, it looked like it was on the money. You couldn't really tell it was behind him. But I mean, I was like, oh my God, we just brought the house right there. Which, I have no problem with that. If you're getting sacks, if you're knocking the quarterback down, if you're causing turnovers, but we didn't get sacks, we didn't get turnovers. Often the quarterbacks were getting rid of the ball quickly, getting it out quick so that we couldn't get to them. And that minimized some of that. But, all good points by you. Absolutely. No disagreement here.
all the crucial games. Derek Robertson was kind of hurt, banged up, whatever, and I think that really hurt because they were able to focus on. They were allowed to move the offensive line coverage, blocking scheme to Malik Fisher's side, and you were getting zero on the other side. And I think that became vulnerable for this defense. So, if you have a healthy Derek Robertson, and I put this out on Twitter this week, maybe health has been the biggest problem with this DC Defenders. Maybe it isn't scheme, maybe it isn't roster decisions, maybe it's health, because it seems like every guy, and I know every team can point at it, because before I get some troll on the internet that resides in the state of Alabama coming onto my timeline, lighting up the comments saying Alabama had to do this, or the St. Louis fans, man, you got the arch. Like, what else do you want out there?
That's all you need.
Like, whatever. Or you got people down in the cow pasture talking about how great their team is. Like, I just, man, I'm talking about our team. Like, you're watching a DC Defender show. We're giving a little vibe on the red and white. We don't care about ponies and cows. Like, we don't care about that stuff.
Well, the thing about it, too, is I know that there's a couple of comments, and keep the comments coming because we absolutely love them. But, to call me a homer, I am, and I'm proud of it. I'm glad to be a homer. Listen to some of these other shows and the stuff they spew. But, I'll be honest with you. Hold
on. The command center says that is out of line. That is out of line. You are going against Birmingham. Command center, come in. Yep. Don't talk about Birmingham. All right, got it. Mike Pereira just told me that.
So, okay, good. Well, at least it wasn't Dean Blandino. I think that's something that I'm going to propose, that we'll pick the charity of our choice, and I'll go on pay-per-view in a UFC style match, me versus Dean Blandino. What do you think? Think we can raise some money for charity?
I got money on you. I met you once. You got longer reach. Blandino looks smaller.
That guy didn't give us a call all year, and I swear I don't think it's intentional. I don't think he was out to stick it to DC, but it just felt like if there was a call in doubt, he was going to say, we look at it. We don't have, what was that thing they called that one time? They were talking about something differential or differentiating something. And I'm like, they're getting too fancy with this referee and stuff now. It's getting too putting too much of a science behind it. But anyway.
I'm not going to complain about the refs, because I think it all evens out at the end.
It does.
I think it breaks even. You might lose a game because of one, but guess what?
Yeah.
In the first quarter, they missed 4 calls against you, and now you got a touchdown there, but you don't remember that because you only pay attention to 4 minutes of football. You watch your football on YouTube. You don't watch the game. You watch YouTube. Highlights. And that's what a lot of people out there that are talking heads and all this kind of stuff, like, they really don't know football. It's a simple stuff.
I agree with you. 100%. And, when you look at our record and you look at us being 4-5, are there some calls that could have gone our way? Yep. Some calls that might have gone our way that we were lucky to get. Sure. But you look at what we are and you look at this team, we're exactly what we should be. I think we're 4-5. And that's probably about, when you look at how we've performed, that's our record is what we are. I think when you look at some of these other teams, especially going into playoff time, and this is not to turn it into a UFL show, for as much as I dislike the Battlehawks, and I just don't like them. I don't like the fans. I don't like I'm annoyed with Beck anymore. I don't like Beanie Boy with the hat thing over there. But I will say, when Beanie Baby gets back, St. Louis will be a different team. I know a lot of people are saying, they're the worst team, going into the playoffs. They're better with McCryan behind center, and when he's in, they're a totally different unit. So I wouldn't necessarily flush the toilet on them. I will say I think San Antonio is getting hot at a good time. That's the key. We saw it with the Maulers last year in the USFL. So I think the next 2 weeks in St. Louis are going to be interesting with San Antonio. It's going to be very difficult, I think, to go in there back-to-back weeks and beat St. Louis. But I guess they wouldn't have to do that if they beat St. Louis this week, would they? If they beat St. Louis this week, then they play in the dome.
They get to host it. Yeah, they get to host it.
Might not see Beanie Boy back in the dome then. We'll see.
Beanie Boy. So I know this is the UFL show, and we're already down that path. Before we get to our predictions for the Defenders.
Oh, sorry.
Stallion. Well, first of all, we'll start with the toilet bowl. Roughnecks or Boats, real quick. Nothing. Who's going to win the toilet bowl in the first pick? They get the first pick. The winner of this game gets first pick in the draft.
That was smart. I don't see Memphis beating anybody. I mean, to tell you, they just to me just are awful. Yeah, I mean, I guess they put up somewhat of a fight against Michigan a couple of weeks ago, but I'd have to go with Houston. Even though Houston, if there's a way to find a way to screw up a game, Houston can do it. Oh my God!
I'm running with Vito Victor. I think, and hopefully they start Troy. And I think Memphis beats Houston. And I watching Houston just I feel bad for Ace. I feel bad for the H-Town Pick'em show, the brand new show, the gambling show on the United Football Media. They're going to do football all year. They're great guys. Really in-depth coverage for that.
Yep.
Alex has been on their show. He's famous.
Coach is a good dude.
Yeah. I feel like they can't get out of their way. And that's their whole problem. And I think they will figure out a way to lose. And I think Memphis will just be fortunate enough. And somehow this ends up being a Memphis favorite to have a good first half in week one, a crappy 9.5 weeks, 9.5 weeks. And then they'll figure it out in the fourth quarter because C.J. Johnson is the head coach of Houston. And that's Memphis. That's all they need. And they get the first pick in the draft. And they draft probably some offensive tackle. If Flip's still there, it'll probably be another quarterback because that's what they need.
All right. Well, I'll go with Houston just to be a polar opposite of you.
Oh, yeah.
But I could
comes out on Friday mornings at 9 a.m. If you want to watch polar opposites, all I do is argue. And me and Ace we haven't been on together for a week. We're kind of anticipating this episode. We're going to film this right after this. We film this on Wednesday. I'm ready to go. But all right. So you got Houston, I got Memphis. Birmingham or Michigan this week. This week, not for the championship.
I'm going to take – I don't see – you see Birmingham losing 2 in a row? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say Birmingham's going to win this week because they're playing in Birmingham, right? Yeah, they're in Birmingham. That's right. It was a good game when they played up at Michigan. I think it was week 2. I'm going to say Birmingham wins at home.
I'm going Michigan. I really do think Adrian Martinez, they have figured out a way to get to Adrian Martinez. You got to have a pass rush. Who has a great pass rush?
Michigan.
The Michigan Panthers. And right now, with whatever's going on that defensive side of the ball, watch Stallion run because they'll complain about that too. Whatever's going on with the defense coordinator with John Chavis, he was replaced this week with Blevins, who was the head coach of the Vipers, who were like the worst team. I know Woodson was. It was a bad situation.
I got Michigan the following week.
I won't go that far. I just think Skip's got to right the ship, and I think it writes a better story if they go into the playoffs losing 2 in a row and Skip shocks the world and wins the title because I still think they're the front runners, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. But I will say, if you can provide a pass rush, an effective pass rush against Adrian Martinez, his numbers aren't there. He can run around, and guess what? Breland Speaks is coming to town. And Breland Speaks, he just had 3 sacks last week.
Guy.
Breland Speaks, and I know they're missing Ginda, right? They're missing Ginda
and Hills,
but
on offense.
Yeah, but Colburn has been super impressive. But I got Michigan winning this week. I don't know if that's kiss of death for the Jungle Kitties because I never picked them. So, and then we'll go to our side.
Forest, right?
Who did?
Colburn went to Wake Forest, right?
Demon Deacon. He's a Demon Deacon, yeah. If you watch a game on ESPN, you'll know. And we'll go to St. Louis and San Antonio. Who's the XFL champion? Regular season champion. Who are you taking?
Regular season champion? Oh, man. Well, Beanie Boy will probably be a little bit – he's been out for a couple of weeks. He'll be back this week. I think San Antonio is going to get him this week. I'm going with my heart, but I think San Antonio gets them back-to-back. St. Louis, listen, you can always count on St. Louis to lose in a big game, to find a way to quit and choke. And they will. It'll be this week or next week. Well, if they win this week, they'll get knocked out in the championship. I don't think they're going to make it to the championship game anyway. I think it's over. Crown San Antonio. Where's Josh in the bullpen? Stand on a cow patty someplace. Just put a crown on his head.
We are 3 for 3 for disagreeing. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to go on polar opposites and say the same exact thing. I'm telling you right now, St. Louis is going to win this game. San Antonio, Wade Phillips has his pants higher than before. AJ Smith's got his entire arm covered with those bands. Chase Garbers is back, and I'm excited to see Chase Garbers because I think he's a bright star for this league. I definitely am. But I think it's okay for them to lose this week. I think it's okay, and it doesn't take them out of the playoffs. I think it's okay to just get everyone right. They've struggled with injuries, especially on the offensive side of the ball. It's better to be healthy for them. And I know A.J. McCarron is kind of banged up, but he needs some game action because now it's been 3 weeks.
Yep.
And Manny Wilkins struggled a lot last week. So,
he came back to earth.
Yeah. Well, they have tape on him for the first time in 6 years, and he played at Arizona State, and he was teammates with Brandon Ayuk. If you did not watch the ESPN coverage, Sun Devil, the former Sun Devil, 6 years between starts. All right, let's go. This last game of the year. Do we go 5-5 or do we go 4-6? Arlington Renegades, a team that comes in, it's got a high-powered offense. They've figured out every way to lose this season. They figured out every way. You think the Defenders have figured out a way to lose? They have legit figured out a way to lose. Obviously, it was a 1-point win the last time they met in Arlington. You're going to be at Audi Field.
I'll be there.
Are you gonna go 2-0? And maybe that's who to blame here. That's who to blame. One reason why we're missing the playoffs. Alex is at every home game. So Mrs. Alex, if you're watching this, maybe you should allow him to go to all the home games. Maybe you look at maybe getting a condo in DC for football season, renting out as an Airbnb the rest of the year. But you got a place to stay. Bring the family. They can enjoy all the sights. Alex gets to watch the Defenders. The Defenders go to the playoffs. Everyone rejoices. So do we go 5-5 or 4-6?
We do, because here's the secret weapon. Mrs. Alex will be with me at the game too. So we're going to pull this thing off. I think it's going to be like a 30-26. I think it will be a high scoring game because I don't think Arlington stops many people. I think we've shown traditionally we have a hard time slowing those guys down. So I think it's going to be a fun game, and I think both of the teams are fairly evenly matched. So I think for the fans, like I was looking at the tickets, we got ours, but looks like a lot of tickets have been sold, not a lot of available seats from what I saw. And that's a good thing because I think, for me, I was kind of debating, do you go, do you not go? But, these guys, we didn't have the year we wanted to have at 4-5, but I'm going to go and I'm going to enjoy watching them play. And they gave us a lot of really good memories last year with the run that they had last year. This is probably the last time we'll see this team in sort of this structure, if you will. So I'm going to go and celebrate what these guys have accomplished. I'm going to hope that they get the win and finish 5-5. And then it's on to the off season. But I'm going to go celebrate with these guys, hopefully on Sunday. Let's call it 30-26 Defenders.
There's a lot of UFM that's going to be in the house. Tell Me About It should be in the house too. So as long as Jay from Defending Football doesn't come, we're all cool. Right?
Yeah. We got to keep him up in New York State, wherever the heck he is up there.
Here's the guiding light here. The worst two teams in the UFL for defending the running game are the Defenders, they're number 8, and number 7 is Arlington.
Yeah.
We just had our best offensive game. And it seemed like things were clicking. And it seemed like, hey, guess what? Even without Kelvin Harmon, it seems like we moved the ball a little bit. I think that we have another run-heavy game, and you see another good game from JT, and Alex goes into the offseason going, hey, you know what? Maybe we can figure this out a little bit. We figure out a little bit here and there. We can live with JT. And Alex becomes the biggest JT fan, and he actually gets a matching tattoo with me that says, I love JT, that I have him on my back.
Yeah.
But I think this
on the other side, if you get it.
I think we see a lot of hole in air Arlers from Houston.
Yeah.
I think they maybe Luis Perez, he's going for the yardage, and maybe that's important to him because he's a stat king. But I think you might see a little Holton Ailers, which, man, we might get an interception. We only got 3 this year. We might get an interception or 2 from a kid that is kind of inexperienced. And I think the kid needs to get some looks. He's been there all year. He has a great podcast. I don't know if you've seen it. He's got a great podcast. He gives you kind of insight to Arlington. So I just hope I think there's an opportunity to run the ball and to get a win, and 5-5, be 4-1 with, 3-1 with Briley Moore. So I can continue to talk about that the entire year.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't bring this up earlier, but we talked about health being an issue with this team. You remember we've replaced our offensive line coach because of health.
Yeah.
The Abram Smith losing there's a lot of health issues on the offensive side of the ball. And I'm not using that as excuse because they still lost their 4 and 5. They're stuck in purgatory. They're stuck. Them and Arlington are stuck in purgatory. They kind of are those next 2 teams after the playoff teams, but they aren't the dumpster fires that are in the toilet bowl.
No.
So this should be an entertaining game. And like, to tell you the truth, the schedule kind of worked out for the league because you got the 2 worst teams. You got the 2 teams stuck in the middle. They got to kind of make some calls. They got older quarterbacks. They were in the championship last year in the XFL. And then you have basically conference championships. Panthers can technically win the championship if they win by like 40 points or something. I don't know. I read something online. Yeah. But the fun thing, because, the league's against Birmingham, like all the Pony fans are crying about, they get home field regardless because of the scheduling conflict up there in Michigan. So they can continue to cry and continue to cry. We got a game on A-Day. Bro, A-Day, come on, man. Like there's not 10,000 people that aren't going to A-Day, or 12 or 15 or 20. Like you've got a 2-time chance. I'll save that for the losses.
The thing I didn't understand about that was what would Akron's spring game have to do with anybody in Alabama? You're talking about A-Day. I'm talking about the Zips. They're like states and states away. What? A lot of Alabama, a lot of Zips fans in Alabama?
I guess, man. But anyways, Alex, this has been fun, man. I love the show. We didn't do a question of the week because it's a hot episode. I was coming in hot. You came in hot. We're ready to go. You're going to the game. I hope the weather's nice. Right. I don't know what the weather looks like in DC for this weekend.
Like 80, overcast, no rain, beautiful. It's gonna be perfect.
That's perfect.
Good tickets. Yeah. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. And for as much as we look forward to it all off season, it's hard to believe that we're going into the finale. It goes fast.
Yeah. Well, we'll continue to do this in the off season. I think we got a lot of exciting things that people can get locked into. Leave a comment. Light us up, yell at me, Pony fans. Yeah. I don't mind arguing back and forth with you. Like, you think you're right, I think I know I'm right, and then we just move on from that. So, hey, hold on. The command center is in. It's time to do your sign off because they control everything.
Well, on that note, I'll just say that I'm looking forward to going 1-0 this week, and until our next visit, so long, everybody.
To all you Pony fans, Mike Pereira and Dean Blandino say, shields up. Webb and Alex out.